We're going to begin this session with a look at some old stroke work trays. This one, notice the cut edge and the lovely comma stroke border. This one is a Chippendale style tray, again with a stroke border, but on a green background, bold stroke flowers. Ah, black. Now look at the comma stroke border. The strokes are thin. This is just indicative of a style of the painter. And another one. Lovely, bold strokes. This kind of painting was mass production painting, and there were several companies here in the United States that at the turn of the century were doing these kinds of trays. They were also done in other parts of the world. Those trays have become very, very collectible now, especially fine examples with a lot of painting. If you'll look with me for a moment at these study sheets that I've done, you will see a similar type of flower, but with a lot more detail. Yes, because I do not intend to paint them as a commercial adventure. There's a dark background. Here's a light, and you've probably seen it in some of the ads. Bold stroke work, but multi-stroke, more than what a commercial artist could probably afford to put on a tray. Join me now as we begin one of those trays. I'm going to give you just a very, very brief drawing lesson because we have so much to get to in this session. I begin this kind of painting with some circles. Now I'm sketching far darker than what I normally would, but I'm doing this for the camera. Circles and ovals, and that is truly how I begin. And then I'll put some leaves. Now I may paint the leaves a little different. What if I wanted a tulip? I probably would put kind of a triangular shape if I wanted that kind of tulip. And tulip leaves. So as we go to the painting surface that we're going to work at today, you're going to see the remnants of some of these lines that I've done in chalk. Now before I go there, I do need to decide what these flowers are going to be. Are they going to be camellia? Are they going to be a rose? And like if they're going to be a rose, I'll start to give myself a sense of direction. And I know you're probably not believing me, but this is truly how I begin. My beginning drawing is really quite messy. And that's why on a light background, as we're going to look at now, I do it in chalk. I am not going to draw anything so perfectly that I could not easily change it. Now see some of these chalk lines in here? You may see me stroke on them, and I may change my mind. Now, for those of you that don't want to begin this way, there are many, many flower patterns. And you can do a floral pattern in this technique, any floral pattern. All right, I want to go to filbert brush, I think. And I'm a round brush painter. I paint almost always in with the round brush, but the flowers here the flowers here are so large that I'd really have to have a big round brush to feel comfortable. There are big round brushes available, but I'm going to go to a filbert. When you paint with me, I want you to paint with the brushes you like. Some of you like a filbert, some of you like a flat, some of you like a round. Choose the brush you like to use. I am going to use a 6 or an 8 right in there for this size flower. All right, I've already started the rows, and they're messy. Yeah, I don't know what these are going to be. I've said to myself, these are going to be tulips. I don't know what those are going to be, but I liked the color. I started with the red and I think maybe I should take just a moment and show you that. Let me turn the tray over. Now this back of this portrait isn't done yet, but it will be because I always finish off the back of the tray. I'm just using water and paint. And I like to explain that I, being an old folk artist, let's say young folk artist, go back to the old methods. Of course, they probably wouldn't be quite this messy. But see, you already start to see the bare bones of a rose. And I'm going to let that dry in real and come back. Now see, it's here. It's a little messy because all I'm thinking about right now is color placement. I've got some red here. I've brought it up here into what I think is going to be a pansy. I've got it into this flower, which is going to be a stroke ranuncula. That one I know. I love those. And then I went to yellows. Now that's a little bit unusual because I usually go to yellows first and set them. But I knew I wanted this rose under here darker. Not for any special reason, only that's where I wanted it. Sometimes we use a color for a special reason. So I went reds, yellows, then I went to some purples, and I've just finished this morning picking up some oranges, and then I put in a few little greens. Now I did this so that I could get all this in, or an awful lot of this in for you. And I apologize for not basing these, but I base them the same way, color and water. So let's continue here. I'm going to want to extend some leaves up here, and the color I'm using, which I should introduce you to the palette over here. I have a selection of very basic colors. Reds, yellows, blue, green. I have some colors I love to put out that are convenience colors, such as this one right here is amethyst. You can mix it. That is just white and red violet. Now, I also have something funny here. This is clyster. And I have clyster in this bottle. And you notice the bottle was upside down. You can put clyster on your palette, on your storage palette, or on your working palette. And it will stay here nice, depending on your temperature, all day. If it's cool enough, at home here, it stays for 2 days. Quite nicely, right there. But those of you in hotter, drier areas, this is nice. That's going to be one of the mediums I'm using. Not right now. I'm going to use just water as I continue. That's because I want it to dry fast and so that I can work over it. Now, sometimes I'll fade away on you And that's when I'm really thinking. And I can't do a good job if my mouth is going. So I just might kind of fade away every once in a while. I'll be right here though. I'll be back. I'm going to take some olive green. I put out an olive green and a brilliant green. I'm going to take some olive green, kind of a tertiary color. Olive green is a tertiary color. It means it has all three primaries in it. These are going to be little lilies of the valley, and so I'll start and get their stem in. Guess I didn't get that quite long enough for you, for the arrangement there. And I'm going to cross the stems for just a little bit different look, and now I got to concentrate. Just casual 2-3 stroke petals or leaves. You see, I've come out of my creative side of my brain and the mouth isn't working. That's true, you know. Some small leaves. All right, I've come into these jonquils here. And I'm going to carry the stems on around. Into these. Now sometimes, you know, you're probably sitting there wondering, should the leaves always flow in one direction? Not necessarily, not on a circular arrangement like this. Now, there's kind of a dead spot here, and I am thinking about it a little bit, but you know, I'm not going to worry about it. Not at this point. All I'm worried about is getting some nice leaves in that kind of complement the rest of the design. You still see back in here and here and here bits and pieces of flowers. Because I still haven't decided whether I want some blue in here. I still haven't decided. I think I want the blue to just be in the background. I should tell you how I made this background. I took cashmere. Cashmere is this color. I took cashmere background color and I put a little blue in it and just began to slip-slap it on. I love slip-slapped backgrounds, and that's like this. Slip, slap, slip, slap. And I didn't mix one solid color. There's a little variation. And as I was going, just using color off my palette with the background color, I decided I needed some green in it. And so it's kind of a robin egg blue, kind of a blue-green light. And this is vellum. This is vellum. I really like vellum lately. All right. This is retarder and a big brush. Get some retarder on there. As soon as it's dry, you notice I'm not removing the painting. Huns, don't get water in here. Water will take this fresh painting off because it's not set yet, it's not cured. But retarder won't. By the same token, Don't have any water in that brush. I just took a dry brush over and poked it into retarder and put on as even a coat as I could. Now, so that I keep this brush for retarder, I always set this brush across the corner of my water pot. And that is the retarder brush. We've discovered a trick, and it's really hard to get your surface even with retarder. And if you take one of these big old dusting brushes, these mechanical dusting brushes, they were used in machine shops. I'm wiping it. This will give you a nice, smooth, even application of retarder. Now, you don't have to clean that brush or anything. That brush, until you're through painting, that brush can sit off to the side. Retarder is not going to hurt it or do anything to it. All right. Putting retarder over has woke up the colors. They're now in their wet state, and I can visualize them very easily and evaluate them for intensity and value. And I'm going to come and put some shadows in. Now, I think of the rose as the cup and saucer. And I have a teacup sitting on a saucer. What you want to do is not just outline the flower, though. Let me show you what I mean. If you just take a good side load and you come like that, you see how this is outlined? This needs to come up on the cup and not be so harsh, not be so outliney. And I'm just finding the direction that I'm going to point the roses. I am working with a side-loaded brush, and I do have a little retarder in that brush. In fact, sometimes I like to just keep a couple of droplets of retarder on the palette so I'm not reaching so far. And see how I'm moving sideways into the color. You could mix one puddle of color if you wanted. I don't. I want to vary it a little as I move through. Now these are smaller flowers, and I'm going to use this big brush in just a moment to cut any harshness. Development of highlight and shadow. All right. I don't worry about it too much. I think sometimes I should worry about it more. In a decorative painting, such as this, you could have the highlight coming from the center of the tray. You could have it coming from the outside edges and shade in. I think it's important to make a decision and try to keep that going through your painting. But believe me, on a tray especially, when you're turning it around like this to work, you're going to forget where your highlight was. So, especially if you've chosen one side or the other. So it is a little bit better to, say, come from the center out or from the edge out, and I think I want to change that and come from the shadows coming from the out. Well, let's... Now, I'm looking at the tray as I'm doing this, and it's staying nice and wet. And I have a little bit of retarder, see, with the paint. If you don't have that little bit of retarder with the paint, when you go back to blend, the color will already have been drying. If you are living where it is very dry or very hot and you're doing this, just do a small area at a time and blend out. See how this softens? And Hans, when you're doing this, you can push the paint this way or pull it this way. So that's what I'm watching. See, I can pull it out, pull it back in. You watch where you're push-pulling the paint. And you're softening anything that's harsh at this point. Now, little flower centers, I may leave a little bit. But this is just fun. I'm not involved in anything. Remember where my shadows were. I've almost forgotten those again. I get so involved in the painting. All right, I think this could be a little pansy. I'm getting some pretty good shadows here. Now, why don't I put a heavy shadow on the back of the rose? Because we're told dark colors recede, light colors come forward. Oh yeah, that's true. But this is not a dark tray. This is a light tray. A light background tray. I'm going to show you something. If I take the colors and I paint something dark, now look away from the video a minute, look away, and then look back, but when you look back, see where your eye tracks first. So look away. Now look, where did your eye go? It went right there. Some of you are probably saying, well, here, yeah, that could be. But that's why that old rule of dark colors recede, I need a water brush. I clean up boo-boos with a water brush. And while this isn't a boo-boo, I don't want to rub it because I take those leaves completely off. There's a little bit of water there now with that retarder, and I will try to remember that. Not going to hurt anything. So we kind of think on those things. All right, let me do a final check here. Now this to me is just pure fun, and this would probably be a separate painting session for me. All on its own. I would just sit and put the shadows on this tray. But I've got to truck along here because I mustn't keep you. I don't know at this point whether I want any shadows on these little leaves out here. I just may want to fade them away. All right, we've got some colors established. If you look at this piece now, your eyes are going to come right here. Your eyes are going to come right here because that's the largest mass of color, and the design is more dense here. Thickness, and I'm getting some transparency here. Should you even it out around? You could. That's not going to be a rule. I want to put a tiny bit more dark because to get that little pansy face to come up. Now, this going in and doing this is sharpening the detail. So, we have hue. That's what color? What color family? red, yellow, orange, hue. We have value. We have pretty much the same value. And while I'm saying that to you, I didn't paint a white tulip white. Did you catch that? Or a light colored tulip. And here are these lilies of the valley. Didn't paint them stark white. I made a mixed white. And actually I took a little yellow and a little amethyst and white and made just a soft white. All right, it's pretty much set up. It is time to go in and put some strokes. It is still dampish with retarder, and that's not a problem. I want to come right to that yellow rose. And right here, this color is called Naples Yellow Hue. And I'm side loading my brush, and now I'd like to show you something on the brush. Excuse me, I need to load that just a little bit better when you're going to show the world your brush, Josanya. All right, let's look at the brush. Right here on the brush, I have a little lump of paint. Right there. See that? All right. If in my painting that little lump disappears, I need to come over and get some more, or if that little lump comes up on the side of the brush, it won't lay off in the stroke. It has to be right down in the corner. And so some of you will prefer a flat. You wonder why I did these strokes first and then those. Isn't it more logical to come here and then in? I work that way sometimes when I don't want to get too fussy. And if I started out here, I'd get about 15 rows of petals in there. And I don't want that. And if it fades away, if it disappears, wonderful. I also like, see how you can see the underpainting right there? I also like some of that underpainting to stay. Now, I'm not too sure whether I want to call these jonquils. And that's where I want to go down to my round. Now, I've just wiped Clyster out of that brush. Here, where we're living, and today it's dampish, I don't have to clean that brush for a minute, so I'm just going to lay it aside. And I'm going to take the round, and I'm scoogieing it, flattening it, now side loading. There's that little lump of texture right down on the corner of the brush again. But see, now I have a brush that I can make big or small just by the pressure of my hands. And I am very apt to say to you, practice your stroke work. Now I started to put the stroke right here. Not good idea. The break in my strokes would be right alongside that. It'll be prettier if I come down. Isn't that fun? Isn't that scary? Yeah, I think it'll probably be a little scary for a while. But hopefully you're just going to be so tempted to get that brush out and practice a little bit, I hope, because this is very, very doable. Oh, I am just not stroking worth 2 hoots and a holler that way there. That can happen to you. Take that whitish tulip now to control the white, and I'm actually going to use kind of a pale yellow, but I just looked over there to how pale the rose was. I still want it a little dirty, so what's opposite white, yellow on the color wheel? Any purple or lavender? Might have just a hint of some back petals. I do want to come over here and catch this. I don't know that we're going to have time to get to all of the other flowers. Let me do just one of these at least, that whitish color. See, I'm worried about balancing color. Well, it's headed in that way. Now, some of you are going to like it just at this. There's a lot of other things. I think it's very, very honest and very, very fair to say I kind of overdo things. I play in my paint a little bit. Loves, what you come up with as your own style it's what you like to do. And if it's what makes you happy, then I encourage you to do it. And can't talk. But see, we're getting a nice feeling of those stroke trays, don't you think? Well, I better get this rose in, and this time I will rinse that brush because I had so much paint in it, and paint will will dry. If you're ever painting and you don't want to take time to rinse your brush, just poke some retarder into it like that. Tap it on your palette and wipe it, and then it's good to go the next time. All right, let's get some pinks. And coming towards the front of the rose, I'm going to warm up. Now let me show you something. See how that warm comes forward? Well, it's a little too dark in value. I've got this lovely coral color here. And let's make this rose just a little different. Let's do this one. It's a different color rose. I think, all right, this is too evenly striped. See how it's like teeth in your mouth? It would be prettier. It would be far prettier. Don't know if the old girl can do it. There. If it kind of, it's always hard when you go to correct something like that. Let's see what we're getting. Okay. Now, this, I've got a little bit lighter color in the brush now. Can you see that? Also, the other thing I want to point out to you, this is my color edge. I've got a dark spot there. This is my color edge. Get it back in here. Get it back in here. This is my color edge. If I'm going to pull a stroke like this, I want this color edge to be to the left, to my left. Because when I pull the stroke, I want that color to trail like this. If I turn the brush like this, I would just push that color all the way through the brush as I'm trying to make the stroke. Now, I'm going to wipe the brush so there's hardly anything in the brush and just put a few little touches there. Let's finish off this. All right, if the light was coming this way, I probably would hit this edge and fade away as it goes under that flower. And I probably would pick up on this edge. Again, fade the color away, even pick up. Even pick up. I know you're dying to see what I do with this one, so let's put some color. I'm going to take that amethyst color, which is just red, violet, and white. I call them convenience colors. It's a color I love, and I use it a lot. So, you know what one of the hardest things is? To remember which side of your brush you're using, especially when you're chattering. Now, if you don't like that color, sweet ones, you just find your own darn color. Mama is very serious with you. You want to live color. You want to find your own colors. Yes. All right, I better put some leaves in. But the painting is beginning to progress, don't you think? Now, this was an olive green, a tertiary green. So I might bring some of that down just to look at it here as I start. But I have really quite some pretty colors here, and I think I want to first see whether I want to introduce some brighter green in a lighter value. Now, lighter values, you always think of adding white, but we can have a lighter yellow green too. And put a little clyster there to get some transparency. Too much transparency. But the color's all right, so I'm going to leave it there. Now, let's do a few more. I happen to love a little aqua. It's just one of my favorite colors. You couldn't tell that by the background, could you? Now, yellow, I want to now put some white to it and come back and make some smaller. What I have to be careful of is that I do not put more strokes here than I have to the flowers. If you put more strokes there, you will cause the eye to go there instead of to the flowers. That's called detail. And the more detail you build on an object, the more you cause the eye to go there. And that's a problem with some design painters, because they build so much detail in tiny flowers out at the edge that the eye is pulled away from the center of interest. How do you know that? Well, you want to train your eyes. You know, I haven't talked to you about, one of the most wonderful things is finding some painting friends, someone to share your hobby with you. Someone to enjoy it with you. So I'm trying to get the most detail, trying to have the brightest color, that's intensity, trying to have, making a lighter yellow-orange. See if I've got it. No, and I'll tell you why. Acrylics dry about a step and a half darker. And so if you put it on there and it looks pretty good, it's not going to be, because it's going to dry darker. Now, we'll start some extra detail. Yellows, yellow oranges, greens. Now see how that starts to mask that messy spot? And it's not bad in there. Also, I chose this color because that lets me put some of these oranges and yellows back in here from some of these other areas. Take some, I'm going to turn these tulips into parrot tulips. And I don't really want, well, I'm looking here for kind of a deep, pretty red. And I want clyster. Sometimes instead of clyster on these, no, it needs to have a little more red. Well, I just wish I had the time to fiddle with this all day with you, but I know you might be getting tired about now of watching this. Of course you can. Stop and start, can't you? Let me put just a hint of some of the flower color in there. Let me show you what a tiny touch of blue can do. Now, when you're doing this at home, you're far safer to let this dry a little bit. Far, far safer. All right, highlight, shadow. Look what a tiny touch of blue is going to do in there, in the shadow, in the cool. Now this is still just not quite right. It's cool. Even by highlight, it's cool. Can you see a tiny bit of warm there? But that's not enough warm. It's not enough warm. Now I reached in and put some orange with it, and that's the strangest thing that, you know, this shouldn't work. This should be just a poo ugly color. Let's see. A little bit too much of it. We'll warm that up a bit. And we'll go back and get some blue, and we'll cool this down a little bit. Now I'm into something we call temperature. Temperature. And I'm going to take that white tulip over there, and I'm going to put a little yellow, but I'm going to use clyster with that so that it looks kind of transparent and floaty. Oh yeah, I like that. I hope you do. It gets a little bit of translucent look in there, doesn't it? Well, we're ready to put some little fillers in this area. I don't have those done, I know. Oh, I've got to do something with them. See, I have an orange flower there, lavender. Sometimes you just have to go think about your color wheel. I don't want to go dark because dark would pop it forward. But I could go to a pink. See, this is more of an orangey. Okay. Get that color just right. And now, if that color stays too bright, I will come back with a little bit of glaze when that is dry and knock it down. I like the color. I think I like the color an awful lot, but I just don't have time, precious ones, to play in it right now. All right, I like to put some filler, and I want to do them with Kleister so that I keep the feeling of a strong stroke to the piece. On this light background, I came in and put these strokes, and I chose a dark color. I don't mix it with the palette knife. On this one, I put little light pea green strokes. I don't mix it with a palette knife. On this one, I'm going to do it with, I think, some blues. I think that's where the blue is going to come. You know, I've been wanting to blue violet. All right, I'm going to brush mix it. I have some colors here on the palette, and I'm bringing down Kleister, and these are just little filler details. I think that's going to work. And I'll probably change the color just a tiny bit as I go through the painting. Now please, if you don't like that color, you go to your own choice. You might want to put just a little liner, just very hesitantly along your and touch up here and there. Well, I'm going to switch over to a finished example because I think I've done enough of some of the different flowers to give you an idea of the technique and show you like these little ranunculus. Now I know you're going to say they don't look like a ranuncula, but this, oh, I think I want you to see this one. I just do exactly the same kind of thing I was doing here, only I go around and around and around the flower. And there's some morning glories, there's some blossoms, sea strokes, here's some daisies. Here's daisies in a different color. And I just layer these up. Now see this dark right in here? Do you remember how I put these shadows in here? These shadows at the end of the painting. I like to leave it alone for a day or so and then come in, sit down, put retarder over it so that I'm evaluating it with new eyes. And this is so important. When we finish something in class together, I'll say to them, go home, have some quiet time with it, put it down, come back in a few days, put retarder over it, look at it, evaluate it, see where your eye goes first, what your eye is looking at, and then say to yourself, is that what I want the eye to see? Oh, I love stroke work. And anyway, when you're done with all of that, you may come back in, like I've done here, and strengthen some shadows with glazes. exactly like we did here. Exactly, no difference. Only this time you're over the stroke work. It'll be dry. If you're worried in the least a bit about it, put a little bit of clear glaze medium over the entire painting before you do that. When we do that, we call that a barrier coat, and that is going to protect your painting from anything else you do. And if you do something you don't like, take your water brush and take it off. I have had a wonderful time painting for you, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope this will help you in your painting. Please, please enjoy your stroke work and try some of these stroke trays. They're an awful lot of fun.
For more information on Josania's products, including Josania's Artists' Colors, Paints and Mediums, Sure Touch Artists' Brushes, Artists' Journal Quarterly Magazine, decorative painting books and design packets, or to receive our free 112-page color catalog, please visit our website at www.josania.com or call us toll-free at 888-567-6652 or write us at Josania's Incorporated, P.O. Box 9080, Eureka, California 95501.